Hey, Dolphins fans, welcome back to the Fins Up Network. It's Ben Morgan, and in today's player profile, I want to talk about Jaelan Phillips, and specifically, I want to talk about his outlook heading into the 2022 season, and also just in general about him being one of the team's top players that are just on the verge of breaking out, and in my opinion, becoming a household name at the edge rusher position. But what I want you to do for me today in the comments below, I want to hear your thoughts on Jaelan Phillips, but also let's try something a little different as well. Let's see how much you guys got in the tank. Let's get a little deep here. I want to hear your top underrated pass rushers in Miami Dolphins history. We all know the Cam Wakes, we all know the Jason Taylors. Let's hear some of your other all-time favorites. So let's dive into Jaelan Phillips here. But before you do, I want to address something that was about Jaelan Phillips basically coming into the NFL because there was almost some weird reporting, some misconceptions that were sort of surrounding Jaelan Phillips entering the 2021 NFL draft. And if you remember, the reports were about him basically medically retiring from UCLA due to the concussion issue. And it turns out that he did that because if he had one more documented concussion, he would have been disqualified from playing anyway. So he did it. He took that year off. We all know how he ended up at the U. He went to Miami. And we all know from there how he got drafted by the Dolphins with the 18th pick in the 2021 NFL draft. So one thing I'll touch on real quick about this is that head injuries are tricky. It's unfortunate that's part of his past. But without trying to sound like an outright terrible person, there's no way Jaelan Phillips is lasting to Miami's pick at 18 with a clean medical bill. Let me get that out there first and foremost. So let's just put it this way. Let's pray for health. Let's just be thankful he's ours. Before we get into this video, let's be thankful that he's ours. And now I'm gonna move that aside. I don't want to talk about old injuries, but let's take a look back at Jaelan Phillips' rookie season because in this video, I'm going to have 3 video clips, things I want to show since I think each video I'm going to show shows a little something different that he's capable of doing in the NFL at a high level. But before I get to those clips, I want to talk about his sack numbers. Let's start by giving out a very quick reminder, though. Sacks do not tell the complete story when we're talking about edge rushers. I know a lot of you already know this, but I need to break this down before we get into those numbers. Sacks are fantastic. Don't get me wrong. That's your ultimate mission most of the time as a pass rusher. But think about how rare it is to record a sack in the NFL. The NFL record for sacks in a season is 21 and a half in a 17-game season. That's just over one per day. And 21 and a half sacks in a season is historic. It's not common. We consider a double-digit sack season, a 10-sack season, to be pretty damn solid. That's just a little more than a half sack per game. So when you consider how many snaps these guys are playing and not recording sacks on those snaps, we've got to pay attention to how else they're impacting the game. Quarterback hits, hurries, getting the quarterback off of his launch spot, changing those angles, forcing quick, rushed decisions. These are all important things to consider, and they're all things that Jaelan Phillips is really damn good at. So, yes, he had a nice season, 8.5 sacks. Also, for a rookie, damn good, damn impressive. But he was also consistent at getting pressure, at literally facing double teams as a rookie, facing double teams and kind of owning them in a lot of circumstances. And keep in mind, for the sack people, he was inches away from like another handful of sacks. And one last thing I want to address before I get to those videos I had talked about. I've heard some chatter about how 7 of his sacks came in a 5-game span and he needs to be more consistent. And I kind of respond to that a couple of different ways. First, keep in mind everything that I just said about edge rushers impacting the game in other ways rather than just sacks. Keep that in mind first. But also, sacks just sort of have a weird way of coming in bunches. Unfortunately, I've tried. There's no better way to describe it than that. It happens when a player just gets hot over a stretch of games, piles up a bunch of sacks, and then he just kind of tends to get quiet. So I wanted to put a little bit of proof to this. So I pulled a random year when Cameron Wake had double-digit sacks. In 2017, he finished with 10.5 sacks. He recorded 6 of those in a 5-game span. We're not going to complain about Cam Wake, are we? So then I got curious and I wanted to see what he did in 2016 when he finished with 11 and a half sacks. He recorded 7.5 of them in a 6-game span. So, like I said, I wish I could give you a better reasoning behind why this happens. I simply can't chalk it up to anything besides, you know what? Sacks come in bunches. But let's get to those videos that I want to talk about because I think that paints the best picture about Jaelan Phillips. And this first one is his first ever career sack. Happens against the Buccaneers, against Tom Brady. And what we're going to see in this video is something that we're not going to see from offenses and offensive lines in general moving forward, because you're going to see he's going against the lineman on the far right of the line of scrimmage. Ends up being a tight end. He's singled up against a tight end, and it's not going to take the NFL long to say, you know what? This is not a good idea. This is not a good way to keep Jaelan Phillips away from quarterbacks. I'll probably end up showing it a couple of times here. But you can see here, he stands up the tight end. He sees that Tom Brady is ready to launch, and he goes ahead, disengages, and gets to the quarterback. So now that you know where he's lined up, I'll show you again. Stacks the tight end, realizes it, shoves him away, gets the sack. And the nice thing about this, you can see how pumped up he is at the end of the sack there. I guarantee if you ask pretty much any rookie edge rusher coming into the league, who's the one player that you want to sack more than anyone? 90 to 95% of those guys are saying Tom Brady, and bang, Jaelan Phillips got to make it happen with his first NFL sack. Now, the second highlight is probably my favorite Jaelan Phillips highlight of the entire season, because you're going to see this against the Panthers. And by the way, go back and just watch that game. Jaelan Phillips was a machine. In this particular play, the Miami Dolphins are only sending 3 against your typical 5-man front, and I believe they have Sam Eguavoen as kind of like a spy. But Jaelan Phillips, I got this in slow motion too. He's going to take on his left tackle with a bull rush, put him on his back, spin off of the left guard, and then still get the sack as Walker, because he realizes that Walker is coming back in, so he spins off that guard. And I'll show it to you again. He's got the bull rush on the left tackle, puts him on the ground, gets the spin, boom, takes at least half of a sack right there. And one thing I want to say about Jaelan Phillips coming into the league was he had a plan as a pass rusher. We see some of these guys that are just super talented because they're fast, or they have the ability to bend well and get around the edge. Jaelan Phillips is more of a complete package. I'm going to steal a line from Ozark. Jaelan Phillips is playing chess while some of these dudes are playing fucking Candyland. That's essentially how I can chalk this up to him. He has a rush move that he'll use a couple times in the game, literally to set up moves that he's going to do later in the game. And we see it right there. I'm going to show it again. We see how impactful that can make simply his bull rush against a three-man rush against 5 offensive linemen. And the Dolphins simply made it look like they were sending the house. Now, this last clip that I want to show, it's not even him as a pass rusher. If you think about it, the Dolphins actually have him listed as a linebacker. But this shows how in that zero blitz scheme, you don't even need to rush him sometimes. He can be the guy that's chasing back in coverage, or maybe even playing a bit of a quarterback spy. So he's going to end up being on the other hash as to where Lamar Jackson is rushing from. So he's not even rushing on the play, but watch how fast he traces Lamar Jackson down, of all quarterbacks in the league. 3rd and 16. And you know what? He's got the angle. He's got the speed. And you can just see how excited he is at this point in time. Got the team. He gets the team off the field. He got one of the most elusive quarterbacks basically to the sideline. And I know there was more people in the play than just that, and I'll show it again here. But what he's showing there is a little bit of what we're hoping that a guy like Channing Tindall can do, where he ends up waiting, being in that spiral, because Lamar Jackson, of all quarterbacks, can be that guy that can get away. Well, he said, you know what? As soon as I have my angle, as soon as I have my pursuit to go, boom, I'm going and I'm getting there. So those are 3 plays, all quite a bit different, but things that he can excel at the next level. And if you can't tell, I mean, I'm pumped for this kid's future with the Dolphins. Like I said, it's just a matter of time, in my opinion, before he is a household name at the edge rusher position. But that's what I've got for today, Dolphins fans. Like I mentioned earlier, let me hear your thoughts on Jaelan Phillips, and let's see what you got in the tank. Like I said, drop some of your underrated Dolphins edge rushers from the past in the comments below as well. If you like what you heard, go ahead and give this a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, make sure that you are subscribing. That's what I've got for today, Dolphins fans. Until next time, fins up.